The little girl's mittened hand tugged at his expensive wool coat just as the snow began to fall harder, and in a voice barely louder than the wind, she asked, "Mister, can we borrow a Christmas tree?" Ethan Cross froze. In his world, people didn't borrow trees. They bought them, decorated them, displayed them in penthouses with floor-to-ceiling windows and skyline views. He was the CEO of a fast-growing tech company, a single father who lived by calendars, deadlines, and quarterly reports. Christmas Eve was just another obstacle to manage before the year closed. Yet here he stood, outside a small neighborhood tree lot he'd stopped at only because his 8-year-old son, Noah, had begged for a real tree this year, Dad. The girl couldn't have been more than 7. Her coat was thin, patched at the elbow, and her boots were 2 sizes too big. Snow clung to her dark lashes as she looked up at Ethan with eyes so serious they made his chest tighten. "Borrow," he repeated, confused. She nodded quickly, as if afraid he might walk away. "Just for tonight. My mom, she really loves Christmas. She's sick, and we don't have a tree. I promise we'll give it back." Behind Ethan, Noah went quiet. He watched the girl, then glanced at his father, his own eyes wide with questions he didn't yet know how to ask. Ethan swallowed. He'd handled hostile takeovers and brutal boardroom negotiations, but this was different. "Where's your dad?" he asked gently. The girl looked down at her boots. "It's just me and Mom." A memory he rarely allowed himself surfaced without permission. The hospital room that smelled like antiseptic and loss, the way his own wife's hand had gone cold while he begged the doctors to do something, anything. He shook it off, straightening his shoulders. This was Christmas Eve. He had a schedule. He had a life. Still, he crouched down to the girl's level. "What's your name?" "Lily." "Well, Lily," he said carefully, "trees are kind of hard to borrow. But maybe we can figure something out." Her face fell, hope flickering like a dying candle. Before Ethan could overthink it, Noah tugged his sleeve. "Dad," he whispered, "we can share ours. Mom used to say Christmas is better when you don't keep it to yourself." The words hit harder than any financial loss ever had. Ethan closed his eyes for a brief second, then stood. "Show us where you live, Lily." They walked 3 blocks through the snow to a narrow apartment building with flickering hallway lights. Lily led them up 2 flights of stairs that smelled of old paint and cold air. Inside, the apartment was small but clean. A string of paper snowflakes hung crookedly along the window. On the couch lay Lily's mother, pale and thin beneath a worn blanket. When she saw strangers at the door, she struggled to sit up. "Lily, it's okay, Mom," Lily said quickly. "They're nice." Ethan introduced himself, suddenly aware that his tailored coat looked out of place here. He learned her name was Maria. She had been sick for months, unable to work, doing her best to make Christmas feel normal for her daughter with almost nothing. "We were just going to make cocoa and pretend," Maria said with a tired smile. "Lily's very imaginative." Ethan didn't answer. He simply turned, went back downstairs, and returned 10 minutes later carrying a Christmas tree nearly as tall as the ceiling. Snow still dusted its branches. Maria gasped. Lily clapped her hands so hard they turned red. Noah beamed. "You don't have to give it back," Ethan said softly. "It's yours." Tears slipped down Maria's cheeks. "We can't." "Yes, you can," he interrupted gently. "Merry Christmas." They decorated the tree with what little Maria had, paper ornaments, a strand of mismatched lights that flickered but worked. Noah offered his favorite ornament, a small wooden star his mother had painted years ago. He hesitated only a second before hanging it near the top. For the first time in years, Ethan felt something inside him loosen. The room was warm, filled with laughter, and the quiet magic he'd been too busy to notice was missing. When it was time to leave, Lily hugged him so tightly he nearly forgot to let go. "Thank you for letting us borrow Christmas," she whispered. He knelt to meet her eyes. "You didn't borrow it, Lily. You reminded us what it's for." Later that night, back in their home, Ethan watched Noah fall asleep beside an undecorated space where their tree should have been. Strangely, the house felt fuller than it ever had. In the days that followed, Ethan couldn't forget Maria and Lily. He pulled strings, made calls, not as a CEO, but as a human being. By New Year's, Maria had proper medical care, and Ethan's company quietly funded a community program for families like hers. But the real change was inside him. He stopped measuring life in profits and started measuring it in moments, shared trees, borrowed hope, and the way a small act of kindness could rewrite an entire season. Every Christmas after that, Ethan told Noah the same story. Not about success or money, but about a little girl who asked to borrow a tree, and ended up giving a broken man his heart back.